Hello everyone, Jeff the Green Review here. Let's talk about the construction of different styles of backyard ponds. The best place for all water features is where they'll be the most visible. Generally this is the backyard, near the house, and deck or patio. Visibility from inside will make the pond much more enjoyable. If it's way out in the backyard, it'll be hard to see, unless a viewing area is also built. But it should never be built in low areas back in the back of the property, not only for visibility, but rains can flood the pond with too much lawn chemicals, leaves and debris, all kinds of stuff can wash in. And then if there's flooding, the fish can swim away if the landscape floods. So you'd want to make sure it's up near the house if all possible. Always make sure that the area of the pond has no utilities buried underground before you start digging. Moving soil is hard work, so don't take it very far. Since most people want to make a waterfall or a stream, it's often easier to put it on a sloping hill next to the pond. This hill also makes a nice background, and it can be planted with perennials. In this case, soil from here went to there, and then soil from there went up there. So it provides that stepping down. Trees can also be a problem. They provide too much shade. Many water garden plants do thrive in the shade, but they may not be the ones you want to grow. Some shade is beneficial for the fish, and it does help slow the growth of algae. Leaves can be a problem in the autumn if there's not a mechanical filter called a skimmer. And covering the pond with a net may be necessary to keep out the majority of leaves. There's a gigantic silver maple over this pond. We do put a net over this pond because that keeps most of the leaves out. And we have a skimmer. Typical depths vary from about 18 inches in starter ponds, from about 2 to 4 feet for water gardens, to over 5 feet for koi ponds. Each of these ponds can be made deeper, as more water volume is better for the fish. Check your local codes for depth and fencing requirements. Ponds for plants only or including just a few small fish are often shallow. Sunlight penetrates this shallow water for better plant growth and algae growth, but they're also safer and easier to clean when they're that shallow. The shelf depths and shapes should vary for a natural looking pond. The side near a patio or where people will access the pond may be safer if it's shallower. The black outline shown here is the liner size and shape needed to cover the pond area shown in blue. All of the extra liner along the edges can be kept as shallow wetland planting areas and beach areas for bird baths if it's not cut off until you've finished making sure the whole liner is available for the pond. So what's this mean to me? No matter which style you're looking at making, make it as large as possible, as larger ponds are less costly per gallon and require less maintenance. They're more stable ecologically, safer for the fish, and hold more lilies and other plants. A common complaint from first-time pond owners is that they wish they'd made the pond bigger. There's already plenty of dry land in your landscape, so make sure the pond is as big as you can make it. Many people want the water garden look rather than a bare-bottom koi pond look. Adding rocks and gravel and plants turns the pond into a garden. Many varieties of plants grow with wet roots or in shallow water. The rocks protect the liner from damage and give toe and hand holds to people, pets, and wildlife should they fall into the pond. 3 different rock configurations in the same shelf help make the pond look natural. Use larger stones to make a campfire ring and a flower pot that is filled with gravel and planted into with water garden shoreline plants. I have a video on how to make that planting technique work, so watch that video on how to do that. The bird bath area has shallow and deep areas for different sizes of birds. You can see the end of the rubber liner that separates the wetland plants from the dryland plants, so even though this area of gravel looks dry, it's filled with water that surrounds the roots of these plants. Just like any landscape project, there are a range of costs. You can put the pond in yourself or have someone else do it for you. The landscape around the pond may need additional work after the pond is in. The pond and landscaping can be done in phases to some extent. Most pond kits don't include everything that is necessary for the pond, like fish and plants. Plants and fish can be bought small and to grow to be larger. More expensive sizes can be bought if you don't have the time to wait. Energy efficient pumps will save money in the long run, but are often more expensive up front. A well-maintained water garden pond can return dividends, not only in year-round enjoyment, but also in increased property value. When a professional installation is desired, check the references of the prospective installer and then visit some of their demonstration ponds before signing a contract. There's a lot of pond walks and pond tours that you can go on and see and talk to the people who have the ponds, make sure that you're getting the right contractor. So what's all this mean to me? Safety is always important when water and children are together. Shallow areas along the edges will help. Shelves forming steps that plants can grow on make it easier to walk out of a pond if someone falls in. Another what's this mean to me? The old-fashioned look of flagstones around the pond separates the dryland plants and the wetland plants, so it doesn't look natural at all. The flagstones do not work well at keeping the liner from falling in and can be dangerous for someone who steps on one of the overhangs that might tip over into the water. Any container that holds water can be used for a water garden, but some are easier to use than others. Hard-shelled pots are best used for above ground. For a preformed starter pond, the hole must be the exact shape of the plastic pond shell. If the hole is too big or deep in some spots, the plastic may deform and crack because of the weight of the water. If the soil has a lot of clay, the pond may float out of the ground during rainstorms, and it can also lift out of the ground due to frost action in the winter. Preformed starter ponds are more difficult to filter or skim. The filter and pump in the pond are ugly to look at and are a safety hazard. If a fountain leans over, the pump can shoot the water right out of the pond. It drains the pond. This could kill all the fish and plants. In cold climates, these ponds are usually too shallow to keep fish over the winter, and in warm climates, they can overheat during the summer. Concrete is difficult to use in a natural pond. It's expensive and labor-intensive to install. It can easily crack with frost action. It can actually float out of the ground in high water table areas if not installed correctly. Lights installed permanently in the concrete require the pond to be partially drained to replace the bulb and are immobile. However, lights hidden in rocks under a rubber pond liner can be rearranged whenever necessary. Flexible liners easily fit any size and shape hole that's dug. It's easier to dig a hole deep enough to overwinter the fish outdoors when using a flexible liner. EPDM rubber liners are the sturdiest and often have a 20-year warranty against UV light damage. And UV light only goes a few inches into the water, so if anything deeper than that's not going to have UV problems at all. After the wrinkles are smoothed out, they can be covered in rocks and gravel, and that completely hides the liner from any UV light and makes it easier to take care of. Pumps move water through filters to create fountains and waterfalls. They're highly recommended to keep the pond clean and create moving water. Splashing water looks and sounds beautiful and attracts birds like no other garden feature. The pump flow rate should match the volume of the water garden pond, so that all the water goes through the filter system once an hour. Another factor to consider is how much water is needed to flow over a waterfall or through a stream. A water flow of 100 gallons per hour creates a 2-inch wide by 1/4-inch thick waterfall. Pumps lose some water flow the farther and higher the water must be pumped, so a larger pump may be needed for long streams or high waterfalls. Many people need a larger pump than is necessary for the filters so they can create a prettier waterfall. Usually, the pump is not used in the winter. When the water temperature drops down into the 40s, remove it and plug in a de-icer at the same time. The biological filter can be drained at that point and all filter materials cleaned and stored for the winter. So what's this mean to me? For the same number of gallons pumped per hour, some pumps use less electricity. So shop around for an energy efficient one. Inline pumps tend to use less electricity than submersible pumps. Magnetic drive submersible pumps tend to be more energy efficient, but not as powerful as direct drive submersible pumps. Inline pumps do not mix water and electricity. However, submersible pumps must be used with a ground fault circuit interrupter because the electric cord goes into the water. If you're looking for water garden products, check out bluethumbponds.com. And this is Jeff for the Green Review. Thanks for watching.